This week in Animation Summer Camp, we'll be learning about story structure, which is the backbone to any story, which is the backbone to any production. To start with, we'll start with the story structure that we were all taught as kids, Shakespeare structure. This is also known as 5-act structure, which was the standard for stage plays back in the day. For some reason, they'd always say that the climax would happen in the middle. Though looking back on this actually is pretty accurate to real-life physics. What I mean by this is, when you're going uphill, you tend to move slower. But when you're going downhill, you tend to move faster. Well, nowadays it makes more sense for the climax to take place during the final moments of the movie. The modern equivalent to the climax in Shakespeare structure would be the midpoint, which we'll go over in the next video. In Blake Snyder's Save the Cat, there are said to be 15 beats in a movie, or at least 15 beats. The opening image, the theme stated, the setup, the catalyst, the debate, break into two, the B-story, fun and games, the midpoint, the bad guys close in, all is lost, dark night of the soul, break into three, finale, and the final image. According to the book, break into two needs to happen on page 25 of a script, or about 25% into your film. The midpoint would take place in the 50% mark of the movie, though break into three is more flexible, as in it can be at the 75% mark, 80% mark, or 85% mark. In movies like Aladdin, the midpoint can be at the point where the characters are at their high point, but in movies like Beauty and the Beast, the midpoint can also be where the character is at their lowest point. With that said, before the all is lost point comes in, if the character is at their high point in the midpoint, they'll need to be at their low point before the all is lost moment. Whereas if the character's midpoint is at their lowest point, they'll need to be at their highest point before the all is lost moment. I'm not sure why they didn't make this an actual beat, but oh well. The all is lost point can be known as the false defeat point, and Dark Night of the Soul is the reaction to that false defeat. This may all appear complicated, but there is a simpler way to tell a story, which we'll go into in the next video. In today's video, we'll be talking about the Dan Harmon story circle. One of the simplest yet effective ways of telling a story. The first part of the circle, you, establishes your characters, what they're doing that day, etc. The need slice is when they need something, want something, or a problem occurs that needs to be fixed. The go part is the start of their story, or their journey. And adapt and search, they adapt to their situation as they're searching for what they're looking for. In the find slice, they find what they're looking for, but immediately afterwards, they pay a hefty price for it, which is what take is. The return beat is where things start to return to normal, or when the universe starts to put everything back in its place. And the change slice shows how the character has changed throughout their journey. In the next video, I'll show you how you combine the Dan Harmon story circle and the Blake Snyder beat sheet for your convenience. In this video, I'm going to combine the two story structures to show you how you can effectively use them. As you can see, I've drawn two story circles. One for the good midpoint and one for the bad midpoint. Here's a refresh of the Dan Harmon story circle. And here's a refresh of the Blake Snyder beat sheet. Okay? So, as you can see in both versions, they're pretty similar in the first act. But their difference starts to show in Act 2. So, if the character's midpoint is good, they'll find what they're looking for in the... So, if the character's midpoint is good, they'll find what they're looking for in the midpoint. But if their midpoint is bad, they won't find what they're looking for until the all is lost to beat, or, somewhere before then. Well, I hope you all found this week on story structure useful. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.